Okay, welcome everyone. We're finally here. Of course, you don't know, but it took us a year and a half to get started. I think Arie and I met maybe a year ago. It was in May last year, and we were thinking that we're going. At that point, we've already been talking about a half a year about setting up the meeting, like in the beginning of last year or something like that. But well, there was always something happening, so it just kind of like moved further and further away. But no worries, we're here. We have the meetup group now, and we're ready to start the first meeting. And with me, I have Henna. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hey all. I'm Henna. I'm some kind of agile person.
Yes.
Project lead or something. I'm not sure about the titles anymore.
Yeah, we can leave the titles out.
Yes.
This is Agnostic Agile.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
No problem. And by the way, I'm Matti Kiviluoto and running the show with Henna. And actually, we have Ville Suomi here also. I don't know, if you come a little bit to the center, then people will see you. Yeah. He's also going to be help us with the facilitations and been like a huge help in setting up everything. So after these welcoming words, we'll hear a brief intro and some more welcoming words from Sam Zawadi, the founder of the movement. And then waiting on the line on Zoom, we have Arie from Bennekum, will be soon sharing that session as well. And then we've prepared a little bit time for some question and discussion around the Agnostic Agile principles. And then we'll end the session by doing a little presentation about kind of like going into very, very deeply, like what actually agility means and how to foster it, and then base the retrospective on this kind of like idea that thinking about what have I done during this spring that I feel that's really agile, what's something that's not really agile, and what's something that I'd like to try in the future, something like that in the retrospective then. But I think that let's hear from Sam Zawadi first. He's actually on the other side of the world at the moment in Australia, so I'll play the recording that he's kindly sent to us. Just a sec.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sam Zawadi. I am the founder of Agnostic Agile. I'm not able to be with you in person tonight, so I thought it would be a good idea to record this video and welcome the Nordic Meetup chapter into the Agnostic Agile family. So welcome, big warm welcome. I'll provide some background information about Agnostic Agile and how it started. So AA, Agnostic Agile, was initially called the Agnostic Agile Oath, and I wrote it towards the end of 2016. I then contacted Arie and a couple of others to ask for their thoughts. And I was pleased to say that I received their support, and Agnostic Agile grew through the London meetup primarily. Since then, we've experienced an organic growth with more people joining the meetups and contacting us directly. We have experimented with different ways to engage the community. For example, we had a Slack channel a few years ago, and then just recently we had a Mighty Networks channel. But what we've realized is that Agnostic Agile works best through meetups, which include interesting talks and panel discussions, creating a learning community. So much like you're here this afternoon to do. And the AA principles are really important, so please do take a look at them. They're on the website if you haven't already seen them, because these things are what bind us all together. And the website is agnosticagile.org. I initially wrote AA because I felt frustrated with the abundance of agile dogma that was going around at the time and is still going around, because it discourages people from experiencing the benefits of agility. A few people back at that time, I remember, were pushing, shall we say, an easy to understand but difficult to master framework. And in doing so, they were really denigrating everybody else. Around 2015, there was a lot of tension between the Scrum and the Kanban communities in particular. which I experienced firsthand, by the way, and I experienced them firsthand within the organizations I worked with. This was the main reason for me in starting AA. Education and a reminder of what agility can bring when we're not fighting amongst ourselves. The name Agnostic Agile was chosen because in Greek, when you put an A in front of something, it generally negates the word. So gnosis in Greek means knowledge, and agnostic means basically without knowledge. And this is important for us because what it means is that we cannot assume a particular method or framework or way of working until we gain some knowledge about the particular context and the environment. So we welcome thoughts, feedback, ideas of how we can grow AA and how we can evolve. So please get in touch with your host, Matti, and his team, or contact me directly. The best way to do that is through LinkedIn. Just search for my name, Sam Zawadi. And also feel free to connect as well. You know, we'd love to hear from you. I hope you have a wonderful inaugural event. And although I am not with you in person, I can assure you I am with you in spirit. And I believe Arie is with you in person. So he's either already given an introduction to himself of how we met and how we came together to run AA with our fellow board members, or he'll do so, I suppose, right after you watch this video. Have a lovely afternoon. And again, welcome to the family.
Yes. Okay. All right, Arie, the floor is yours. We've just heard the kind of like welcoming words from Sam Zawadi, and now the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Matti. Hi, everybody. I'm thinking about what to do. I was thinking about what to do. I suggest that I do a talk like maybe 20, 25 minutes, depending on where I go, and then it's open for Q&A. I think that's a good idea because I can understand there are questions that people like to have answered. I already heard you, Matti, about talking about, you know, discussing the principles, but any other question regarding Agile for me is fine. Yeah, Sam opened up. Let me give you a little bit of background. Some of you might have heard me on a talk before, but let me give you a little bit of background on, you know, where I come from when it comes to Agile. I started my career in the IT in 1987, January 1, actually. And, you know, I was a developer and then I was a technical designer. And it was in 1994 that I had been working on a big project for a governmental organization in the Netherlands with like 30 people, maybe full time for 7 months. And then out of the blue, in the morning, I came into the office, the client's office, and we were called together and everybody was sent home because the project was canceled. And I don't know about you and how you perceive your life, but for me, already being in a struggle in that project, feeling that, you know, as a technical designer, you know, in that very, very classical waterfall, the only people that I met was the project managers. I met the functional designer who had to hand over his functional design to me. And I put my technical design, you know, this is the days when you had paper posts by people pushed around through the building. I never saw the developers that took it on. That was very difficult for me. I had two people who were technical designers as well. And I noticed at least one of them was really struggling with it. And then you get to that, for me, still very weird moment where you get called into a big meeting room, 30 people, and almost everybody was sent home because most of the people of those 30, I think 27, 28, were externals. And I thought, how can it be that I am part of a project that is funded by public money and that it's just canceled? You know, I feel a responsibility at every moment that I walk into the client's office or even to an office when I'm on the payroll that I contribute with value and that at the end of the day, I walk out and I think, done something, achieved something valuable for the organization. It was worth the money. And obviously the 30 people doing that project were not worth the money, whatever happened. I never knew. And that was a moment where I thought, I'm not going to work like this anymore. There has to be a different way. And it was shortly after that I got the opportunity to step into a project that was based on rapid application development. And literally, it meant for me, and I think a lot of people have the same thing going on. You're at the office, you're sent to a 2-day training, and now you understand everything that you need to understand to be able to work that way. And of course, that wasn't the case. I always said, and I always say, this is where the experimenting started, and it never stopped, to be honest. And I got into this way of working where I did things like time boxing, prototyping, user participation, working in sprint setting, priorities, dropping requirements, allowing new requirements to come in if you handle them in a specific way. From there, further on, it started to evolve. In hindsight, if I look back, in the late 80s already, I was doing pair programming. I had no clue it was called pair programming at the time. Maybe it wasn't at the time. I don't know when that term came up. But I've always tried to find better ways of working. I still do, by the way, I still do. And that was for me a turning point. Now, it is in 90. So I started experimenting 1994, 5, doing commercial deliveries. And two things happened. I heard somebody and struggling with, okay, am I a project leader? What am I? I was the project manager at the time. Disregard names if you like, right? It's the responsibility that you have. And I was able to deliver those projects on time, in budget, and with a very happy client. And a happy client, I mean the end user, not a manager who says, okay, dismissed, you delivered everything that was on a functional design document or something. No, it was end users who said, this is helping. This is the cool stuff. That's number one. That was really for me a good to experience. The other one was that doing those projects in a successful way. And I remember one client, they were struggling with all their projects at the time. I did 3 projects in a row, and all of them on time, in budget, and with a happy client. And don't understand me wrong, it was not perfect, but the end users got something out of it that worked. And I remember that there was a change in the CIO position shortly before finishing the 3rd project. And he came to me and he said to me, Arie, I know your projects are really going well, but we are not going to work like this because it's so complicated. And I thought, what's complicated here? Because I just try to get all the people that are involved in the development of a new product or a service or whatever you call it, from the business, from development, from security, from quality, from the legal department, from the marketing department, try to get everybody together. Well, it's not complicated. I mean, organizing is, okay, you have to get everybody together. Not easy because people have full agendas, of course. But the moment that you set up a project in a proper way and you can agree on that kind of, collaboration before you go into the project itself, it works. You have to, as a project manager, you have to chase people that are really, there with everybody in the room the moment they have to be. But the rest is really evolving fine. So I thought, at the same time, this man is not a liar, right? So what is it that makes it complicated for him? And that was for me later on that I started to understand, if you bring people together and you bring people from the end users in the position of deciding over the requirements because they know what helps them best under their fingertips, and not managers that are disconnected from the daily practice, at least on the detail level, but most of the time on the conceptual level as well. So you need to talk to the right people, right? So that's where I got into, okay, this is something really different. This is the deep change that you need to make that one at the collaboration level work. Because if people don't have the right empowerment, don't have the right skills, are not allowed to have the time for, those all stakeholder sessions, you get into trouble. So on one hand, doing deliveries well, knowing why it works. On the other hand, okay, it requires change to make this happen. And if you don't bring that change into your organization, it means that you have to do the sort of a mini change every time before you go into a new project or a delivery or whatever you call it. So these are, the two pillars where I come from. And at the same time, I got into, this is the summer of 1997, I got into the DSDM consortium. And I know that I worked quite a lot with people from Sweden, with people from Denmark, the Netherlands, the UK on DSDM. You know, it's these days called the Agile Project Management Framework. And what I also noticed that, especially after when we wrote the manifesto, you know, I went there and the rest was there, and actually we were in conversation as authors of the manifesto again. Okay, what can we do, you know, to get together again? But it was that moment where we got together in 2001, and you know, you come back home, literally, you come back home and nothing changed. I mean, the internet was this big at the time. There was an Agile manifesto on there. So what? But then, you know, over time, I think it was 2004 that we had a very big, I think 1,100 people, Extreme Programming Conference in Madrid, I think it was. And XP got a lot of traction. And I remember in the DSDM community, there were quite a few people that were hesitant because, you know, we have DSDM, we know what to do, and we know where we are, and we don't need anything else. And then shortly after, it was a Scrum that took over, you know, easy to connect to Scrum, small team work. You know, the manual is not like this, for example, compared to the DSDM manual. So easy to adopt, and people started using this. And then I felt, again, that same, well, let me use the word, resistance against Scrum at the time. And, you know, I stayed in contact, and I in contact with people like James Grenning from Test Driven Development, also one of the authors of the Agile Manifesto. And I figured out, how in the world is it possible that, you know, when we got together, 17 people working different in their own way. So everybody was working differently in a different way, trying to improve the embedded problems in the waterfall. And how come that people don't want to adopt something that is a best practice from somebody else? I just didn't get that. I got into my, you know, I kept on doing commercial deliveries, projects, work, and of course you do master classes, and you know, more and more my work shifted into being present at conferences, what we would call meetups today, you know, all these kind of moments where you share. And what I noticed in those meetings, in those, let's call them conferences, in those conferences, is that a lot of people say, oh, but you know, I do this framework, and that helps me everything. And I know gurus, and I'm not talking about the authors of the Agile Manifesto, but I know gurus, or people who call themselves gurus, and they use one framework only. And it makes me nervous, because it's never about the framework. It's about helping your organization to be agile, helping your organization to work agile. I want to make you a drawing on the flip chart behind me, you know, and I want to just as an idea, you know, for what we, so this is an interesting question, maybe, especially, you know, with all the respect for the discussions we have in the world at the moment. But this is a question for literally the ladies in the audience. What happens if you bring 17 men in a room? Now, normally, and that's my personal experience, and you can debate me if you like, but normally everyone tries to convince the other 16 that his idea is best. That's what happens most of the time. You get that endless yes-no debate and trying to cut people off, saying that this is wrong what you do. And there's no wrong in a best practice of somebody else, because obviously they build that from their learnings. And that's one of the things I like about that weekend in Snowbird, where we listen to each other to understand, because we were together to write a publication, which became the Agile Manifesto. And obviously there was a connection, but there were also differences. And I would like to explain a little bit to you the differences, right? So for me, in the waterfall, there are three elementary problems. One, it's the value delivery. You know, we tend to be focused on a list of requirements. We are in that process of the waterfall where we have remote and written communication, like I just explained in my last waterfall project. And remote and written communication always leads to misunderstandings. Right? If you read a document, and even if you listen to me now, everybody has their own perception of what has been said, either in the document or by me now in this case. So if I would ask anybody of you, okay, what did I say? I will get, for everybody, a different answer. Is it not on the big lines? Is it on the details, right? And this is where a lot of problems come from. So at the end, in the waterfall, you deliver something that the client never asked for, and most horrible, what they don't need, right? So the value of a delivery is very often missed. I remember that I was once doing an audit, and I was talking to the technical project manager, and he was so proud because the people from maybe operations or so, I don't know, who had checked his technical design, they said that was the best technical design they've ever seen. And I asked him, so how does it help the business? And he looked at me as if he saw water burning. He didn't even understand the question, because his paradigm was, okay, you know, I have a functional design, I have to transform that into a technical design, and the technical design has to meet specific criteria, but the criteria are not on the business. There's no check on the business. It's okay, do you meet corporate criteria for a technical design? You know, templates in Word or whatever you use. So the value is one. The second one that was very dominant when we wrote the manifesto is the efficiency part, because we all know that in that waterfall, you know, you do your own step in the waterfall, then the documents go out, they have to be reviewed, the information is coming back and going forward again, and you're waiting at toll gates, and they have decision-making people that accept that they're not even part of the business. All the things go wrong, and the toll gates create a lot of time loss, right? And sending emails up and down about reviews of documents creates a lot of time loss. And the last one is obviously quality. I mean, the technical quality, right? The bugs and that kind of thing. And we all know the jokes about IT projects. And probably it's not only a joke. If I look at that same governmental organization that I did my last water project for in 1994, they are still on a monthly basis in the news in the Netherlands because they mess up. And they try to split the organization into 3 organizations as part of the solution, because of course it's heavily IT based, and it doesn't help, of course not, because they don't go to the root of the problem, right? And the root of the problem is communication. Those problems can be solved. I always say Agile is an interaction concept. Now, what happened here as well is that people said, you know, when we talked about it and explained to each other, okay, in that weekend in Snowbird, what is the perception where you write from? What is the paradigm? And some people would say, okay, you know, as an individual, or maybe with a colleague of mine, how can I do my job better? Some people were looking at the team, you know, 9 people or less. And some people were looking at large groups. Okay, how can you make it? Because there's a lot of work in the world that cannot be done by a team of 6 or 7 or 8 people, right? There's a lot of work where you need much bigger teams and a lot more time than a couple of sprints. So how do you do this? And this is where we came from. So this also explains, depending on the focus. So my focus was the value, as you maybe can understand when I got out of my last wonderful project. I was always trying to improve, you know, the delivery for the business. What we deliver, is that really helping the business? Is it on time, and is it the right stuff in the moment? And other people had other focuses. So if you look at this one, you can say, for example, you know, one of the golden oldies is lean and Kanban, which you can do, which is about efficiency, right? There's a lot on every level that you can do. And I remember that Jeff Sutherland, I think it was Jeff Sutherland, who said, lean is from efficiency in the car manufacturing industry. Scrum is based on lean, and Scrum is, you know, about efficiency in the software manufacturing industry. But we had also people like, as I just said, James Grenning. Just if you call James now and you would ask him, what is your profession? He's 72, I think. He will say, oh, I'm a software engineer with a passion for quality, right? That was the thing, test-driven development with Ward Beck and Cunningham and Ken Beck, extreme programming. Of course, you have here, you know, focusing on that team and the efficiency. You have Scrum. We had at the time FDD. We had things like Crystal from FDD is from John Kern. Crystal is from Alistair Coburn. Jim Highsmith with Adaptive, and I brought in BSDM. And later on, we had things like Less and Save, and, you know, more things that and mixes. So right, that are And this is where it originates from. This is what Agile is today. And if you ask me, why am I an agnostic? Because obviously I've been working as an agnostic, trying to do different things from different frameworks, and as well trying to to invent new ways of collaboration that fit into that mindset. How can you move forward? To make sure, I always say, Agile is about avoiding delay of delivering valuable solutions to operations. How can I do this? What can I do to make that happen? And this is, for example, this is not complete, right? There were 13 different frameworks, just to give you an idea. And I always say, if you want to be agile, if you really want to be agile, which means that as a team, large or small, it doesn't matter, and you have a solution, you have to understand, okay, or you have a problem, you have to understand, okay, what is the origin of my problem? Is it the quality, is it the efficiency, is it the value? And then within the frameworks, checking out what are the practices that help me really, to make that happen. And then you can say, okay, I know this, so we have a quality problem. So okay, let's go into refactoring. Let's go into pair programming, test-driven development. Oh, I have a value problem. Let's look into the business collaboration. How does that work? Oh, that's DSDM, a beautiful practices for. That's how to work agile, and depending on the team size, you can see where you are, and that makes you an agnostic. But being agnostic is not what you strive for. You strive for, can I deliver the value without delay? That's what you're looking for. And to be able to do this, we all make mistakes. There are always hiccups and bumps in every delivery that we do. You have to understand, if you have a hiccup or a bump, what kind of is it? What framework could help me out? And maybe you have a solution that you invent that's not even there yet, and you start using it and applying them. And that's for me what agile is. So this is just on the agile side, This is the body of knowledge that you need to have to be able, as an agile coach, to help, in transformations, to understand what is the problem, where am I, what is the size of the group, what frameworks, what practices, and then help those teams or people to adopt it, right? That's where we need to go. And then it sounds also logical, right? It's also simple, man. Because all those frameworks are in the books I have here. I have a book that Jim Highsmith wrote shortly after writing the Manifesto. The frameworks present, completely present in the weekend are described here. I can recommend this one just to get yourself an idea. But it also means that, okay, you have on the knowledge side, you have a lot of work, to understand, to comprehend, and to start working. And a transformation, a change, you always take in baby steps, as I say. You can't do big bang transformations. It simply doesn't work. And it also makes clear why, if you implement one framework, it doesn't make you agile. And then implementing the framework very often becomes the objective instead of creating the agility of the organization. And that's where we need to go. That deep change that I was talking about, in the beginning, because on the top side, the practices, they seem easy to use. But if you don't facilitate the people in the right way, to be able to make the change in the way they work, but also to have everything that they need to be able to work in that way, facilitated by the organization, by names of roles that we were just talking about in the beginning, or anything else, right? That's a big thing. And the decision-making processes. How do we do documentation? What does documentation mean? How do we do decision-making? How do we get together? How do we collaborate? How do we communicate? Those kind of things are deep. And if you look at it, this is a real paradigm change. And I wanna give you an example, and it's one that I love because it came to me a couple of years ago. I have other metaphors as well, but this metaphor was absolutely, for me, so helpful. My girlfriend is from South Africa, and I just returned yesterday, actually. And in South Africa, they drive on the right side of the road. Sorry, on the left side of the road. See, there I already go. They drive on the left side of the road, and in the Netherlands, we drive on the right side of the road. And if you look at it, you stand on a crossing, it's more or less the same. You know, you see people doing similar things as you know, driving cars, motorbikes, lorries, there are traffic lights, traffic signs, there are rules in traffic. It might look the same, especially for people who don't like change. You know, they will say it looks the same, or even worse, it is the same. And it's not. Especially in Agile on the collaboration side, you have the rules is not maybe the right word, but the way you engage is literally different. And people are not used to it, like I am not using to drive on the left side of the road. And here comes the metaphor. You know, if I go into a car, if I walk to a car in South Africa, if you guys follow me, we'll see a car and you know, that's a car. And then you get into the car, and for me, it's always a very strange thing because Natasha is always driving. The steering wheel is on the right side of the car. So I'm sitting in the same chair as I am sitting in my car here in the Netherlands. But I'm sitting there without the steering wheel. It's really weird. It feels weird. And I remember that I got into the car, and this is even a difference between countries that all drive on the left side. This is different from UK, South Africa, and Australia, for example. We get to the first crossing, and I asked her, how does it work? You know, what are the rules? Because in the Netherlands, it's always people from the right, they have a preference, right? You have to give them way. I said, oh, it's very simple. The one who comes first has preference. And I thought you should try this one in the Netherlands, you know, in Amsterdam or in Rotterdam. It will never work. In South Africa at the moment, they have load shedding. And that means that whole areas in the city are without power, including the traffic lights. And you see everybody standard, you know, giving each other preference one by one, we'll take the crossing, everything goes well. You know, it's amazing. It's a paradigm. This is the way it is. This is what people know. This is what people have been practicing for years. And then you see signs, and I have to ask her every now and then, what does that sign mean? What does that sign mean? Now, rules of the game and the traffic signs in this case, I can learn, you know, take a book and I learn, I study, and that's nice. And then I can go behind the wheel on the right side of the car, go get into traffic, right? And now the point is, if I would do that and there's nobody else on the road, and maybe even somebody sitting next to me, helping me with the rules of the game and explaining, Arie, this is now, they will go left, right, and this is what you have to do. Pay attention to this, pay attention to that. That works. But the point is, you're never alone in traffic. Same as when you're doing projects, you're in a group of 8 or 20, or my largest one was about 90 people. You're never alone. And then it happens that somebody does something unexpected, and it always happens. Something unexpected happens. And what do? And the point is, if you go into change, you don't have your solutions for that situation. You only have solutions from the past, from the old way. And it's even worse. Your reflexes are based on your old ways. And changing those takes a lot of time. If you go now with me in traffic in Johannesburg, and I'm behind the wheel, you have to understand that if something unexpected happens, that my reflexes will the one that I apply at that moment in time will most likely be based on driving on the right side of the road, not on the left side of the road. Yeah, okay, so we were in traffic, right? And we're talking about the reflexes. And when something happens, and especially, and we do it often, you go sort on an automatic pilot because you trust on what you know and what you can do. The old reflex, I call it innovating backward, right? You go to a training, everything now needs to be different because we had an agile training. Then you go to work, but then you bump into that situation that you don't have an agile solution for the problem that you have. So what you do is you implement an old solution. And it's strong. It's very strong. I want to give you one more example, and then I'm going to the wrap up. There, where my kitchen is, I was there. My son is about to come home in half an hour or so from work. I'm cooking. It was last summer, almost a year ago. I'm cooking. He comes home, sit at the bar. We have a talk. You need to know, I love cooking. I have a nice kitchen. And when I came living here in October 2000, I put my trash bin behind one specific door. And then it was maybe 2014 or 15, I don't know exactly. I moved it to another door, the trash bin behind another door. And then it's the summer of 2022. My son comes home from work. Hey man, how are you doing? I was having a wine and cooking, and you know, we talk about what time to eat, and I want to throw something away. And I opened the old door for the trash bin. This is how strong paradigms are, you know, and automatic things that we do. So when it comes to Agile, it's understanding, you know, what Agile is, what kind of problem do I have, what are the solutions, but also being strict in them. You can vary on whatever you do, but say, okay, now let's look at, if I try to find a solution, do I find the solution in the Agile way? Am I still driving on the right side of the road, or am I now doing something that's, you know, basically meant to be for driving on the left side of the road, or vice versa, right? And that's something that takes time, and that's what we underestimate. And this in combination with the fact that we don't like change is a big thing. Coming back to this part here, I just want to say to you, you know, what you look here and what I showed you in the book of Jim, this comes from people who said, okay, I'm working in a way, I'm having a problem, you know, with the prescripted way of working because the embedded problems are there. What can I do? And we didn't have all those practices at the time. It was coming from our brains, right? Some of it partially, at least, guidelines, but you know, this evolved from people's brains by doing something different than the thing that exists. And that requires an open mind. And I see too many people who have that framework dogma. They want to have a prescribed way of working. And that's a pity, because it blocks you from being agile. And maybe, Matti, I should stop it there.
Yeah.
And I can ask anybody here in the room, please be open to learn. If somebody wants to share a best practice, listen to learn and understand, not to criticize. Right. That's what I want. And if people want to join me on LinkedIn, they can connect to me if they like, right? So that's about it. Let's go to Q&A if you like, Matti.
Excellent. Yeah, let's go straight to Q&A. Let's start here from the audience that we have here present. Any thoughts, any questions, anything anyone wants to ask or share at this point? This is so Finnish. So
maybe I can start, because
yeah,
I'm not Finnish,
go ahead.
I'm not 100% Finnish. What I've experienced, I work as a product manager in a tech company, and I've run large-scale projects and manage big platforms. What I've experienced with all these frameworks is basically that they are very rigid, and the people that have been appointed to implement them are even more rigid than the frameworks. And so,
yeah.
And they come to you and they're not interested in your problems, but they're basically telling you, well, you work, the way you work, it's not, you know, it's not agile, and it's never enough agile. So I came to this meetup kind of out of curiosity because of this terminology of agnostic agile. I was really curious. Is there a way to be agile without being actually rigid? Because my experience of like again the people working with the frameworks, working with Scrum or working with whatever the framework, that usually there's a lot of rigidity, and there's not enough attention placed on the context and what problems you're trying to solve. So it's just sharing my experience. It's not a question as such, but just to get you started, maybe.
Yeah. So Felix, was it right? Your name?
Julian.
Julian. Okay, sorry that I misheard. Yeah, I think you touch on a big problem in the Agile world. You have a lot of people that study a framework, get the certificates. This is where it gets worse. And then they think they know everything. And they don't even care about your agility or your problems. They just want you to work like they say, which is against everything that we wrote in the Manifesto. And this is also, I'm very, very critical on all that certificate. I don't mind certificates. I mean, going to university means that you get a certificate at one moment in time as well. But do you get a certificate because you deeply understand what we talk about and you deeply understand the purpose? Or do we get a certificate to pimp our profile and make a fee in the market, right? And if you do the last one, you invested in it, so you want just that one to talk about and nothing else. The way I like to overcome this, as you can imagine, I select let's call them agile coaches, okay? I select the agile coaches that I work with. And I get the creeps when I read, see all those posts on LinkedIn where people say, oh, I might save something 5.0, 6.0. And does it make you a better agilist? Does it make you better in helping your client delivering value to the market without delay? Does it help you? And implementing one framework for sure doesn't work. That's one. But it's the mindset. And when I go into an agile transformation, as you can imagine, I check in of course I check in on architecture and I check in on development practices, but I check in on the mindset of the management layers. I check in on the mindset of the people themselves. I check on, okay, how are you doing the things at the moment to identify where are the problems? And then in your agile transformation, you start working with the principles that help you most, right? And that's the knowledge that's supposed to come from me and my team, I would say. But identifying what is needed to become that happy organization, that agile organization, that is helping the business with the product managers that know what to do, they know where they're going, they feel that the strategy is fulfilled, there is connection between strategy and delivery. That requires a transformation backlog where you say, I need to understand where you are. And it doesn't matter how agile you are in the mindset of the management, the mindset of the people, or the way you document, or the way, whatever. But okay, how can we make that next step? What can we do to make you move forward? And that's the way that I like to go. And I've been, I can say, pretty successful in it. Innovating backward, as I explained before in my talk, is happening very often. Because people like to be on their own and on their own feet, be independent as a company, and I understand that. But then you need to make sure that your agile coaches have the right knowledge. And the point is, the agile knowledge for agile coaches is just one of, for me, 4 areas where you have to have deep knowledge. You have to have deep knowledge about this agnostic agile to be able to help your team as much as possible. You have to have deep knowledge about how to facilitate the communication and the collaboration in the delivery, which is more than applying agile practice. How do you do this? The facilitation part. Then number 3, you need to understand how to help people because people don't like change. So all those coaches that come in, are you really a coach? And a coach is not a tree hugger. Hey, you can decide whatever you like to do. No. A transformation is change in cohesion. So we need to make the same step forward altogether, right? Step by step. And how do you do this as a coach? So you need to have your coaching skills. And then the 4th one, also elementary, is how do you approach that kind of transformation? And I can tell you one thing, Julian, it is not about implementing a framework, and it has never been. Because we listen to learn and to understand. Implementing a framework is that you just move from one prescriptive way of working to the next prescriptive way of working, and that doesn't work. You need to make sure that your teams connect, especially if you have dependencies in deliveries. But how the teams work, as long as they are aligned, that's fine. How they work in the teams, that's up to them. Don't prescribe. The worst thing that that gives me red spots in strange places of my body is the agile playbook. This is basically a description on how you should work. No. So it comes down to the skills, but to make that change. But it starts with, okay, what kind of change do you need? And that needs to come out. You can call it I call it transformation foundations, right? Where you do an assessment and you say, okay, for the first step, this is what should be in the change, in the transformation backlog. And that's based on agnostic. And then it requires the skills from the coaches to make that happen. Dogmatism in a framework never helped anyone. Never. Was never the intention. Am I helping you, Julian?
I guess I think I share your point of view when it comes to dogmatism, and starting from the problems and understanding the context. So yeah.
Okay. And of course, there is so much more to say. You can understand, but I try to give you in a couple of highlights, you know, where to focus on. And the cause of the problem that you described is that the people you talk about are not interested in making you agile. They're interested in selling what they do. And that's something different. I will never tell you what to do. I will say, okay, this is the first step you can take with this problem. You can do this, and that will help you move forward. And from there, I help them to experiment with things that exist and experiment with things that don't exist and come out of a retrospective. You think, okay, oh, how should we do this?
Excellent. Thank you so much. Anyone else here live here on site? If not, anyone there online?
Yeah, I have something in mind.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes,
yeah. So my name is Antti, and my question is, I'm currently trying hard to think about like what are the good positive sides in picking a framework when doing an agile transformation and trying to unify ways of working.
Please repeat the question for me, Matti. I don't hear it. Okay.
Yeah, I'll repeat the question.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So thinking about how to think positively. What does the framework bring? And I'm thinking maybe it is like we establish a common starting point and a common language, and that brings us together, and then we can start improving from there and taking it to our own direction. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So to summarize it up, Antti just asked about using frameworks and the benefits of having a framework in the sense that it gives you a unified language and a unified way of working. And I guess that's kind of what you were just explaining. But how are your thoughts on this? How frameworks help in?
Can I still
go ahead?
Specify. So the point, like as a starting point,
when it comes to having a common language
from there,
that's not served by one framework. Of course, if you do one framework, you have a common language. But if you work agile, you have a common language as well. It's just wider, and you need to understand. And then you need to make sure that per team, and team can be on any level where people, you know, have a shared responsibility. You need to have that common language as well. And if this is what is being handed over in the transformation process, you might meet a team that is not working the way you work, but at least you understand what they're doing and why. And you and your team might have a slightly different way of working, and that's completely fine. Right? The need for standardization is a false need, because it fakes security, but it doesn't, because one framework doesn't help you with the problems. So you need to enlarge that common language.
Thank you. I think that was a kind of like a very mind-opening answer in a sense, because obviously even I would have thought that it would bring value to have a kind of like a unified one way of working. But you're absolutely correct that if you really want to be agile, you cannot constrain yourself in just one way of working.
Let me give you an example, Matti. So in the time that we wrote the manifesto, I was working for, I think, the most agile company in the world ever. We started in 1997, and when I joined in 1997, let me put it right, I was number 24 on the payroll. And by the turn of the century, we had around 700 people, and it was all autonomous growth. And in those, we had self-organizing teams, and a team might grow. You know, the only thing that was done by a staff was invoicing and paying salaries. In the teams, innovation, business development, sales, contract management, delivery, HR, hiring, firing, whatever, everything was done in the teams. And for example, if you look at legal standards for HR, the legal standards are the same because they're in the law. But how you get there is per team. How you want to do that, that's fine. As long as a company is saying, okay, we are aligned on the legal standards, that's what we do. How we get there is up to the team. If the team needs help, they can ask it. They have best practices in other teams, they can learn from it. Right? And that's the way you're thinking. And the common language is, of course, is the law in the metaphor that we just had. But it doesn't mean that we have to do everyone the same thing, because different teams have different needs. And that's a fact. Yeah.
Wonderful. I really want to thank you for your time and for these kind of like eye-opening examples really love the metaphor of like moving from right-hand driving to left-hand driving.
Yeah.
It's really is like something that it's easy and very tangible to understand. So huge thanks, Arie. We'll be continuing with the short intro to the retrospective and then moving to the actual retrospective. But really want to thank you already at this point, and hope to see you very soon.
Yeah, that would be nice. I would like to say thank you to everybody here. Again, I have a habit, if you send me a question in the direct message on LinkedIn, I answer within a couple of hours most of the time. And if it's too much too much typing, we can do a short video call or whatever. So feel free to connect to me in LinkedIn. And I wish you for today, I wish you a lovely session. Welcome to the Agnostic Agile community. Matti, thank you for kickstarting the Nordic chapter. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Arie. Bye-bye.
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 All right. And we're back. Just want to check because really sorry that we had to do this in a very complex way, because Arie told me like this morning that he's always got some problems like using Teams. So we figured out that we need to find some kind of like a quick solution for this, and well, it wasn't the kind of like the most optimal solution, but it was a solution. I just want to check with everyone there online. Everyone is doing fine. Any questions so far? Let me check the chat. There's probably something I didn't. Oh, sorry, Paulina, we missed your question. Yeah, very good question to be discussed later on once we head to the retrospective.
Answer is no.
I would say that's debatable, but yeah, let's leave that for discussion. All right, I'll get back to the presentation, and then let's move forward. By the way, if you want to get back to the Agnostic Agile principles, just go to the website, and you can find them there very easily.
What was the website?
agnosticagile.org.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to remind. Okay, so I wanted to do a little bit of a teaser before we enter the retrospective, because way I see the situation is that we're currently in a world doing software development where everyone is saying that they're working agile, and if you think about what I've kind of like copy pasted here from the State of Agile report from 2021, it even states that 86% of teams that claim that they're working in an agile way. And I don't know about you, but I'm not comfortable with these numbers, and I'm not comfortable with what I see when I wander around the office. So I think that it's really worth challenging. And then I also want to kind of like remind that what are the typical things that you hear often that are the reasons why people are choosing agile development, like the traditional ones, like more revenue with lower costs and lower risks. Yeah, sure. And then from the State of Agile latest report, like faster time to market and predictability of the delivery and lowering the risks. So very similar to the kind of like generic ones. And then some that you often hear when you talk with fellow agilists, that a lot of us talk about like better quality, a sustainable workload, and better adaptivity to the changing needs, to the whole landscape that we're facing in our work. And the thing is that do we really see this in practice? Have we improved? Now, if we take a look like 20 years back, it has been a continuous improvement where we're kind of like getting more and more agile and being more and more able to adapt to risks and to kind of like mitigate risks and to be more predictable in our deliveries and faster to deliver. And honestly, I also cannot really stand by this. I'm not really seeing that in at least like in very general terms. And Arie already touched a little bit about the historical context of the Agile Manifesto, that he was part of the writing team. There were, I think, 17 people present at the event, but of course there was some kind of correspondence leading to the actual event. But anyway, what agility originally was against was like planning everything up front, and then this kind of like rigid management of the different aspects of projects, this kind of PMI, project management style, and then these all kinds of procedures, like and kind of to be able to do your work. Like Arie explained that you created a document, for example, about requirements. You had to get it to a board, which probably met 2 weeks from today, and then you waited like a third week to get the report back with the comments, and then maybe you had to revise your report and get it again kind of approved. So this is really slow. We see this happening still, and in some places I would welcome this, but that would be like in healthcare and aviation and those kinds of things where there's like human lives at stake. But of course we don't want
public IT procurement.
Yeah. And then it's a lot of like meetings all the time and reports. I personally hate this reporting all the time. So I did a couple of drawings. I already posted this one in particular on LinkedIn. And what I want to say with these little dots and arrows is that here we see kind of like an agile situation where we have the users, we have the development team, and we have the kind of like a customer. If you want to say, it could be also the same organization, that it would be the ones in charge of kind of like the product management, whatever. But the whole thing is that even though these are kind of separate entities, there's still a lot of interaction going on. They're very close to each other. So they're kind of like the customer and the delivery team are constantly in interaction with each other, and there are also kind of all kinds of externals that are also involved in the thing when needed. And then most importantly, the kind of line between the end users and the people building the product is also a little bit not that rigid. So there's also some kind of like dialogue going. So we're getting feedback from the users, and we're also kind of like contacting them with questions, etc. And the other one is something that I try to do this kind of traditional, very hierarchical decision making, where someone higher up here in the food chain makes the decisions, and the boss below this boss makes some modifications. And when it boils down to the last person here communicating with the team, there's already kind of like the message has been changed from what it was, and also that the interaction coming from the end users are from like selected individuals only, or like formal feedback only, and it's like one way kind of ticket going on. And what I see also a lot in a lot of big corporations, that in kind of like with good intentions, the companies are shielding the development team from all this like massive feedback, which I've been, by the way, in projects where there has been like overwhelming feedback from the users. That is a problem. It can really be a problem if you get like 1,000 feedback messages a day and you have a team of 5 persons. It's unmanageable. So sometimes you need to have someone there to help you out, but typically this shielding is very counterproductive. And then this other kind of drawing that I made about frameworks, that what I see the ideal for some frameworks, which I will not mention. I used to be kind of like very critical towards some frameworks, but I've taken the kind of agnostic agile oath, so I'm going to be very kind of like I'm going to try to understand every framework, but still, just like Arie just explained, a framework can really constrain you. So if a really rigid framework, you kind of like get always the same result, which is, it's kind of good if you're manufacturing kind of like, let's say like cups, coffee cups. You want it to be exactly the same. But if you want to build houses, you don't want to make them identical to each other, but you want to kind of listen to what are the needs of the family that's going to move into the house, and so that it meets their needs, and what's the direction of the sun, etc., etc. So in real life, we need to adapt to frameworks, and kind of also it's very interesting what Arie just said, that maybe also master a couple of frameworks and take the kind of like good learning from each of them. Then this came in our kind of like, I want to highlight that this is what I'm presenting now, and the whole community is just, it's not me, but we've had really fruitful. We have this study group. There's Ville Suomi and Henna, Tuunainen, and myself, and we were discussing actually yesterday, like what we're going to present as kind of like as a kickoff for the retrospective part, and when we started like going really way back to like 100 years ago, the Keynesian business model, this kind of theory of everything that Milton Keynes, or what was his first name, can't remember, but anyway, was building, and the whole thing is that I've also been an entrepreneur myself for 10 years, and I don't know if there are many entrepreneurs here. Any show of hands who's been an entrepreneur? Okay, a couple of you know what I'm talking about. It's horrible. You don't know if you're going to be able to pay yourself a salary next month. You don't know if you're going to be able to pay the taxes or the bills or whatever. So you're in a very chaotic world and a changing market. So what the Keynesian approach was that you force the stability. You really put all the force, like you use command and control hierarchies. You want to kind of really constrain all the problems, and you have, like, if you have one person dedicated to look at the costs, then you have another one to control that this person is doing the job in the right way, etc., etc. So the agile approach here is that what we kind of came to a consensus by chance was that by learning and having a lot of like informal interactions, instead of like forcing the stability, you build resilience towards the chaotic and changing environment. So you're happy. I mean, maybe not always happy, but at least you're able to adapt to the chaotic the things that happen in the world. So I think that I've talked enough now, and maybe even too much. So the idea is now that we go into smaller groups and start discussing a little bit from a personal point of view, sharing thoughts. And I was thinking that first of all, when we're talking now, let's be really respectful of each other. We really want to keep this a safe space where there's no reason for any of us to be down, kind of like doing any harm for anyone. And also when we're discussing cases, let's not name people or companies, anything. And everyone is, you don't have to share anything, or whatever you share, you only share what you feel comfortable with. But then instead of the normal retrospective questions, I would like us to focus today on like more like, let's look back, let's say from the beginning of this year, and what's something that you feel that in your work, you personally, in your team or teams, what's something that you feel is really agile? What's working well for you, and what's bringing agility? And then again, what's something that's kind of like holding you back and being not agile? And then also giving new ideas of like, how could we be more agile? And because we're hybrid now, so I propose that we divide ourselves here in on site into two groups, led by Henna and Ville. And then I can now join the session with you folks there on the internet, and we can have our own little retrospective. Is everyone okay with the arrangement? All right. So let's divide into groups, and I'll stick here, but Henna and Ville, just find some nice spots somewhere here, and let's do. I don't know how pressed with time everyone is, but I would say like let's do something like 20 minutes, and then get back and do kind of a wrap up. So now it's something like 15 past now, so maybe let's say 20 to 6. Let's aim at stopping there. Maybe a little bit over time already, but as long as you have time. I'll stop sharing here, so I'll get to see all of you. Sorry about this. I see something happening also on the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, I was commenting on
Yeah.
the Keynes thing.
All right. Everyone happy with the idea about the retrospective here online? Yes. All right. Anyone brave enough to be the first one to start?
Well, I can do that.
Excellent. So go ahead.
I know that if nobody volunteers, then I'm a Scrum Master. So the next step is the facilitator selects one. So
no, it will be I would be then the one. I'll be. This is not this is like a very kind community. We will not force anyone. But go ahead, Samsa.
That's cool.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, as for the first question, that what has happened, what have we done that's really agile and moving forwards. This is kind of a general level, but to question things and iterate and try to find new ways of doing things. This is actually very connected to the point that what is not really so agile, which was already here mentioned, that having a framework in a very rigid way. So that's what's happening at our customer. But we've kind of tried to find the ways that where we have to follow the rules, whatever they are set, and to kind of question those rules that might not be actually completely set in stone, and then kind of find ways to circumvent the kind of agreed practice. I think it's really funny that what Arie said there, that quite often if you look basically at any kind of manifesto or any rules or anything about agile, it's usually in top 3 you find that you have to have these feedback loops and adapt to the reality. And then when somebody implements an agile transformation, for some reason they begin by picking a stone tablet and chipping there that this is how we do agile in this company from now until the CEO changes and we change it again. So that's the reality, but we are rebelling against the reality. That's our agility.
That's wonderful. It reminds me of the original Star Wars first, or I think it's episode 4. Yeah, A New Hope. Yeah. So wishing all the best with that. Then again, anything you feel that you have new ideas that you'd like to try out in the future? If not with this team, then with another team, something that you really would like to try.
Yeah, and even in this team, we have these kind of ideas how we could adapt, so we could, for example, keep the kind of spirit of the framework at the client, but how we could adapt and move it forward. And it's there are multiple things. We've been, for example, experimenting with the BDD, the behavior-driven development, and that's actually pretty nice looking format that seems to be helpful for the developers, but also I feel that there's a huge potential in BDD to facilitate better communication with the kind of non-technical business people and the technical people.
Very, very important. I totally agree, and I think that the easier and the lower the threshold we can make it between the tech people and the business people, the better the result. Definitely worth trying an experiment. Anyone else wanna give it a try?
I have one thought to tell you. So it just suddenly struck me. Before moving last year, I was working for the outsource company, software development, and I was a project manager there. And I noticed that I had a variety of clients, and with these specific clients with whom I had like more than just client relationship, but like partnership growing there. And I understood that the waterfall, which I used to work for years, doesn't really implement there. So I understand that in the end of before me leaving the company, I understand that I was really outgrown that, and I wanted to grow something into more like agile, really, because like just scope deadline, it didn't really work, because I understood when we build this relationship, of course, you talk more, they share with you your like some pain or the business, how to make it more like shiny and unicorns, etc. And these led to some kind of new non-planned stuff to do, and therefore because waterfall doesn't work there. And I think when there are two companies who work together, waterfall doesn't work. And I guess for me, my goal for future just to dig into the agile even more, just to be able to pursue all these tips or everything. I know that this thought is not really completely in the topic, but it just struck me right now.
Hey, come on!
Even after all the years of working there.
This is retrospective. You can anything you say is right.
It's my personal retrospective, working for years in waterfall. Yeah. So interesting thought. Yeah. So I guess it's for me something to follow into the future. Yeah.
Any specific things you'd like to try in the future? I really love what you said about building a partnership instead of like a customer.
Yeah, so I found out that it's my it's a plus of me. I don't know, it's my strength, which I can do to build this partnership with not just the people but clients. Yeah, because usually my CEO would go to me, there is your client, please make it profitable. And well, as usual. And I'm not just like, okay, here's your thing, here's my money, blah, blah, blah. But we just, I don't know, grow and flourish, both of us. Yeah, and in future, due to my relocation, I actually haven't found my place under the sun. I'm in a new job. Yeah, so there is why I think that I want to join a maybe agile company, because as I feel that I'm a person who eager to learn, and I feel that I'm a better suit there, so I should try there. So I guess it is what I will follow this year. Well, is my goal. Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
Well, yeah. Hope to achieve that.
Excellent. Anyone else want to go next?
I could go next.
Go ahead.
I don't have much experience with Agile or Waterfall, because I'm slowly transitioned from last year to work with the project, and future goal is to work as a project management and so on. So I will move soon to a new job that is doing with a project assistant. So that's why I'm very interested in how like Agile work. I'm not sure how the team gonna be, because they basically have a lot of sub team among of that project, and just try to different kind of understanding, try to see people experience, so kind of adapt a different working style basically. Because with the current work I have, we don't really have Agile. I have been different project, but I don't really work directly with like developer and so on. And those small project we work, it's very small team with like 5 people, so you don't really see much of the difference of how Agile, waterfall, so on for that. So it's just a learning process for me right now. I never experienced any retrospective. I know that I have learned this from the course about Agile, Scrum, and so on. But I know that reality it's going to look way different with what we learned in the course and everything. So I don't have much to share about the team or the experience. I just want to share that I still in the learning process with the agile and adapting different working style. Hopefully gonna work well with the project. But I wanted to ask, like, you work more with the like a client or like internal client, because so far I only work with like internal client in a way that you support the people within your company, which is a different department or division basically. And of course it's the mindset is different a bit, that how you serve with the client, like outside client. So I'm just wondering if any of you have any experience with the internal client that you support, so that
I could pick on that easily, because first of all, I've done that again, and then secondly, that's kind of like in the core of the Agile Manifesto. I think that a lot of people that were writing the Agile Manifesto came from product companies. So companies where the kind of software development team was actually building the product. So they were working for the company. So they were not working for a kind of external customer, but like building the product that the company was all about. So so in a sense that the whole agility thing is of course working just as well for internal customers than external customers. Because it's all about the adaptation to change. And what I really loved about your openness of like being open to learn, that's exactly the kind of like agile mindset. And you have a wonderful opportunity that you're not kind of spoiled with these waterfall projects too much. So once you start your career properly as a Scrum Master or project manager or whatever, you'll be able to kind of like take a clean slate and start adopting agile practices right from the start. And the good thing is that, as I mentioned in my presentation, that a lot of agile practices are well known in the field. So it's kind of like easy to build on that, and just you bring your learning attitude and your kind of agile mindset, then you'll do great things, I'm sure.
Thank you. I hope I'm starting the new job very soon, in 2 months. So I really hope I'm going to be okay with working with all the team. So thank you.
Yeah. The best of luck, but I'm sure that you'll do it. You'll just fine.
Thank you.
Antti, do you want to share any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm full of thoughts. It was funny that you said that, it's a luxury if you haven't worked in waterfall, and it's kind of strangely for myself, like I consider, having been in some kind of an IT business on and off for over 30 years now, I've never seen waterfall. So, but
lucky
curiously,
you.
but curiously, what we're doing right now, implementing a framework for like 200 people, that's maybe the closest to waterfall I've seen, and it's like I'm overwhelmed. I'm trying to act as an agile coach, but when I think about everything we're doing and planning and the options and what we need to do, it always boils down for me to like it's really about helping people in teams feeling autonomous and taking the responsibility and having the courage to change things and all of this and to communicate, and then it's very secondary, like what do we call the things we do and what's the framework, and also so I'm kind of trying to be the balancing power that I just go with the people and try to model for them, like you can show leadership no matter what your role.
I really like that attitude, because I think that a lot of people who are kind of like given the task of being a Scrum Master don't understand that actually you can be called a Scrum Master, but you could actually act as an agile coach and start coaching people around you, even outside of the development team, but in the outlying organization, to better understand.
Yeah. And I think in our organization, actually, the big challenge is changing the mindset of the management level people, because we've been like the development teams have been really agile and even self-organizing for a long time, but there's like this constant friction with the management style. So that's the harder part, and that's something like I feel very helpless with. well, luckily we have other people who are tackling that, but I should be there with them as well. So that's my challenge.
Yeah, I just really want to wish the best of luck for you in that, because I've also personally experienced similar problems, and I don't have much to kind of like give you as best practices, because it's sometimes really hard to change the mindset, because we are humans, we're really rigid with our minds. But I think that the only kind of thing that has helped me in my life, like with top management, is when you start talking money. So in many ways, being agile means more money, because it means that it has the promise of being like faster to market, faster adapting to change, cutting kind of like slack on development, like unnecessary things. But of course, if you're taking a framework that has a lot of like building like artificial dependencies and wait times, then is that agile? Then I would say no, but then someone might define it differently.
Yeah, I found it true that the money argument is effective. On the other hand, I feel really bad about it, because so many things in agile and self-organizing structures and all of that, it's just, ethically right. It's the right thing to do to make people thrive and be well, and that the money is a side effect. So for me, like deep down, it's all upside down if you start with the money, and that's kind of the deciding factor. But of course, like business is business. We need to talk like that. But it's like I have a bit of a challenge with that.
Yeah, I have to comment on that, because that's a very, very familiar struggle with the management. I guess everybody who's done this long enough will encounter it. I always try to say everywhere that if the people are feeling good, they are more effective, and that means more money. So I try to bind that together. And actually, in general, good that Matti you brought up the money angle, because that always works. But I've actually found that when dealing with management, it's actually not just money but numbers in general. So if you can prove somehow statistically or at least in some numeric way that something is improving, for example, you tend to get a lot more leeway to do new funny things that they don't initially like. But if you can prove, I mean, you can dig around in Jira or whatever, you can even keep your own statistics. I have several Excels running all the time. So I just like to prove things with numbers, and that's usually quite well received. You go there and show that, okay, we got 20% more stuff done in X amount of time than we did half a year ago. So how's that looking out to you? And suddenly they are not that angry anymore that we are breaking rules.
I guess like, but often like from the traditional mechanical management point of view, what we do in Agile, it looks so counterintuitive. Like I guess for the traditional manager, everything in their gut says that this cannot work and this is inefficient and it's a waste, and people are just doing whatever. Where we need structure and hierarchy and control. But it's I can imagine it's really hard to reverse that thinking.
Yeah, the control part, command and control, it's something that I get back to it all the time, and I see that I too have faced the fact that I've made really like well justified financial arguments for something, and when the management feels that they are not in control, they might still kind of do against the kind of like the better judgment, just because they want to keep the control. Yeah, that's really curious. Any thoughts on this from Paulina or Mai?
Actually, this money talk remind me my question, which is I asked, because it was my situation when I tried to pursue a client that we shall change, like go from waterfall to agile, but it would be more expensive to them. Well, according to their views, and I guess they're right actually, because if we would still continue working via waterfall, we would take risks and money risks to our side because we estimated this in like this amount of money, and this is our goal to go with. But if not, then not. Yeah. But using Agile, we would deliver faster because we would have this continuous, I don't know, conversations, some requirements, like felicitation and stuff, and my developers wouldn't be taken away to another teams because we don't have enough workload for them and blah blah blah. These outsourced company struggles. Yeah, they're tough. Yeah, and I tried to, and we started this to have this conversation because from place where I come from, it's not really common to have this agile processes implemented. So yeah, but they were really interested, but of course it takes time because they need to go through this change in their company, because yeah, there is a company itself, their company, and they have their processes, and I'm sure that they are not agile at all. So yeah, it's a really big work to do there, here, but yeah. And this money talk is really tough because I don't really have any arguments except, yeah, delivery time or, I don't know, better quality, because we understand you better with the first talk. I don't know. I'm still thinking about that in a retrospective again.
No.
Yeah.
I think that if you want to use arguments like financial arguments to say that agile development is better than waterfall, then I think that it's good to think about the fact that it's not just like getting the product out faster, but it's also kind of like I don't know if you know lean philosophy, like it's really common in managerial circles, and I really like it because it's all against wasteful things to do. So the thing is that having meetings and doing unnecessary reporting, that's time away from actual coding, so it's waste. So I think that this sometimes has helped, but that it really means that then the management would have to kind of like have a very strong buy-in into the lean philosophy. So then it makes sense, and then there's this kind of there are some factors that might come as a surprise, and which is that if a company has been doing something for a long time, then they probably have actually become good at it. So they're doing it fairly efficiently, or let's say efficiently enough. And if they have to change their way of working, there's always a learning curve. So that's something that I think a lot of companies are afraid also, that this learning curve will cut the efficiency and create new costs that they couldn't kind of foresee. So that's something that why I'm always a little bit hesitant if someone says that which is cheaper, like doing it agile or waterfall. I think that you always need to know the context. But if you can have a fresh start, you need to build a new product. Then I mean, who in the world would do it in a waterfall way? If you could, I mean, start like in the very first day, you already have first features done, and in the best case, like already deployed. And after the first week, you have the kind of your product in the marketplace already. I mean, in waterfall, I mean, the first week would have been just like setting up meetings and procedures and and stuff like that, and no work getting done.
I guess it's like if certainly it's cheaper to do waterfall if you know exactly what you're going to do, which product you want to have in 2 years, and you know how to do it, and you know all the problems and how you will solve them. Then it's faster.
Yeah, but all it's yeah. I still remember when my clients like, oh, I remembered. I was like, okay. It was really funny.
And by the way, another thing that causes often this kind of waste in lean sense in waterfall is that you spend time designing things or even building things that will not get used.
Yeah.
Happened just a couple of weeks ago, even if we are nominally agile. But I mean, if that would have been planned like 2 years in advance, it would have been exponentially worse. And I guess one thing, if you think about the transformation or actually doing any transformation, that it's in financial sense, it's an investment. So if you do an agile transformation, or even if you bring in new people to a team or do whatever, then of what the productivity, it of course will drop, because you have to get the new people familiar with the stuff and so on. In the short term, yeah, but what happens in a year or 5 years or 10 years, that goes to the compound interest level of number magic.
Yeah, very, very good point, that thinking of the transformation as an investment. And yeah, definitely you don't want to design things that you won't get developed, or like Arie had an example that you develop something that the end users don't need anymore. So it's outdated already, the design, when you get it done. We're kind of like closing to the end. Matti, do you want to still add something? Any comment on what we've been discussing so far?
Not really. I mean, the money talk, I guess I will slowly learn in a couple of months when we do the budgeting for the project. So not for now. Maybe in the future, if we have a similar meeting, I might have comment for that.
Okay. All right. If you will excuse me, I'll start wrapping up the people here together, and we'll kind of like hear what the other groups have been discussing, and kind of closing the meeting in a moment. So, but just give us a few moments. I need some time to get everybody here around the same table. I hope I don't even remember how much time we allocated. Probably it was only an hour and a half, so we're already over time. So I do understand if you're in a hurry, but if you have time, then I'm sure that there will be very interesting stuff coming from the other teams as well. But let me check on that. Okay. Sorry. Let's start wrapping up. Everyone is now ready, and we're ready for the final wrap up. Get everyone here. So just come closer to the table so we can all hear each other.
Sitten se on semmoinen, että siellä kaikki moni jakaa niin sitten se on jo selkeä ryhmäkeskustelu. Mä oon sen se on vaan ehkä toisen keskustelun. Saataisiin kaikki on jo huomannut.
Okay. Sorry. Let's get back to the session. Sorry. We're a little bit over time already, but let's try to be brief. Yeah. Hey, thanks for joining.
Yep.
You missed very cool bike here in the office. Henna, do you want to kick it off with? Do you have your notes anywhere?
No,
or Ville, do you have them?
Any notes?
I do have notes.
Okay, Ville, I'll let you start. I also have some notes.
I'm just like wondering how to share this.
Okay, let's
by talking or by...
just talking. Let's not overcomplicate. Let's not invent the wheel now.
Yeah. No framework.
Yeah, just like quick comments on or like quick wrap up on what you've been discussing.
Yep, we had three quite different observations from the past life, but one was about focusing. It's important to focus on the solving the problem rather than thinking of being agile or not. So that's kind of something that has been talked today. That it's not about is this the right tool, but are we solving the right problem with that tool? So that's important, and in the essence it's about team collaboration and being flexible. That's simply put. And then like, yeah, maybe agile principles can help in that, but it's still the point is to be communicating with the people. But yeah, so maybe too many times someone from the agile police department says that this is not agile that you are doing. So that's always like not very constructive way of trying to transform or develop. So that was like about team collaboration being flexible and adaptive. And then the second question, it was more like a question like, what can we do in that situation where you have been doing something with the team or with the organization, and you just feel that the way we are doing or the what we are doing is just doesn't feel quite right. Like how to kind of, should we wait and see that, okay, will the end result be good, or is this just something that we have to kind of keep on doing so that we see that if it works or not? Does it, like, is patience required? And then like maybe we kind of came into that conclusion that you don't you shouldn't wait too much. So that if you notice something that there might be something that needs attention or needs sort of reflect kind of adjustment or something, that then you should kind of raise your hand and talk about it, but maybe even like scale it up to the question that is our team or is our organization actually doing the right thing, and then think about it from that perspective, that can we somehow adjust the way we are doing things, or is it more about like the what we are doing, which is the maybe the product or the if we are doing some service to the users, for example, that should we adjust the delivery. But anyway, we thought that it's better not to wait too much. Yeah, even though the patience is also a factor there. But then there was the third thing that was discussed was about like how to measure of like the thing that like, are we agile or not? Because it is sometimes a kind of goal for some people or some roles that you are set to be, or kind of make the agile transformation or something like that, and then you need to measure it with something to back it up. You have these like KPIs and that sort of things. So how to verify the value that you are bringing to the table? That was sort of kind of a really good question that there might not be like ready-made answers to it, but like how to kind of say that this what we do, or that what I do as for example as a change agent is worth it. That's something that at least consultants kind of struggle daily. Yeah. Like how to kind of verify that it is worth paying you this money. But then there was one idea about like just as a general experience from the using OKRs, which is something that has been like in a couple of years lately, something that people or organizations have been doing, which is the objectives and key results. So, and that is one way of trying to like not focusing on the kind of single measurement like metrics, but more like trying to form like sentences and wordings about the objectives and the outcomes you want to achieve, and then focusing on kind of what do we want to achieve, and then setting some kind of goals or metrics to them. So that might be something that could answer to the question that how to measure the agility also. But yeah, we didn't kind of come to the clear conclusion on that question. But maybe you said it that even like trying to do something like trying to set set those objective and key results, it kind of supports the common learning, and because they are usually set by a group of people, not just managers. So that's already a kind of thing that is kind of enabling something, and having understanding together might answer to the question that are we agile or not.
Very interesting discussions.
That was a good summary.
Well done. Thanks.
Henna, now are you ready now?
Yeah, I was mentioning. I thought that I would mention something that we kind of started actually with the last question about what is agile and how we see it in our environments and organizations where we work, and seems that we are not in that agile environments with our group at the moment, or have been for a while, and in some business domains it's